Good morning, good day, good evening, good night. Wherever and whenever you're listening to this, welcome to the Bitaxe Townhall. My name is One Clue. I'm your host and I'm really happy to be here. I hope you guys are also really happy to be here because there are a ton of things we need to talk about as always and as usual, especially about all of the beautiful things in open source. So, what do we want to talk about today? Obviously, first things first, for everybody who is in the audience right now, it's awesome to have you here. If you do have any questions or if you just want to have a chat, etc., these town halls are for you. So it is a bi-weekly thing that's happening. And if you want to hop in and you do have some questions, feel free to ask them. You can use the town hall chat. There's a chat icon. If you click on the town hall thingy there, the stage, then you can chat. Or if you want to come up on stage and just have a chat with me and do that, you can raise your hand and I'll make sure to bring you up on stage. Just be aware, these town halls are recorded and later on uploaded. So with that out of the way, I think now you know what's going on here. Let's quickly go over what we want to talk today about. One thing that I'm personally really excited about is something that I do have right next to me, which is a huge package from a friend of mine, the creator of the Octaches. He sent me over a care package, more or less, because he was working on a really new revision of it with a couple of improved things. And I asked him, hey, do you want me to quickly review that and take a look into that? And he said, yeah, sure, let's do that. So for everybody of you who is interested in the Octaches, bigger machines, just a little bit more beef and more power, be aware I probably will do a video about that tomorrow. So hopefully I do have the time to finish that tomorrow as well. But I have opened the package. I was peeking into it, but I don't know anything about the Octaches apart from the keycard files and what I have read online. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Especially, I'm so intrigued by this mindset of creating a device with that amount of amperage. Like the amount of amperage that is going through this PCB is hilarious. I think that's appropriate to call it that. It's a ton of power that's going through this PCB. By no means would this probably pass any regulational test, but it's a fun project anyway, and I wanted to test it, so I just asked him and he sent me that over, and I do a review, I give a couple of thoughts, and then I'll send it back to him. So I'm really happy to do that, and I think it's gonna be an interesting time, especially in the future, if we do have more devices upcoming, especially with more power. Like probably a ton of people are always like, when are bigger miners hitting the market? When is this becoming a thing of like 3, 5, 600, 900 watts of usage? Yeah, I think it's gonna happen sooner than later than all of you might expect. And one interesting thing, especially these days, is we do see all of the manufacturers, or some of the manufacturers, who are producing like NerdX, NerdQX devices, BitXes, they are now also diving a little bit deeper themselves into the process of what does it actually take to create a new device, another miner. And I think we will see more devices coming out from different people, which I'm really encouraging and looking really forward to that. Because like in the end of the day, we don't want only like the BitX and the NerdQX devices to be the only one. There are also other clever people out there to create devices. I do see a question in the chat: how many amperages are going through that? Well, if we do the quick math here, we have like 1.2 volts that this thing is running on, and usually, if we have like ASIC. One ASIC is, I'd say you can push it to like 20 amps, which is like 24 watts. Let's be a little bit more reasonable. Instead of having like 20 amps that we do push through like one BitX, we only go with like 15 amps. So we're sitting at 18 watts. If we then just multiply that by 8, we're sitting at 144 amps. Or in that case, watts. So let's see. Amperage 1.2. And we have like 15 times 8. Yeah, no, I'm right. It's 188 amps that you could probably push through that. Cyber Robot, that is a really good question. So Cyber Robot's asking in the chat, why not put these AC chips in series? And that is a really, really good question. The thing here is, if you are in OSMU, or if you have listened or checked out what we have built so far, we have a variety of miners that have been built in this open source Miners United community. And one of the things was the hex, the Bitaxe hex. The original one was with the BM1366, and there's now also a super hex. And these ASIC chips, they do run in series, but there are some issues with that. So there's currently a little bit of investigation going on with that, why these issues do exist. And a little bit of a spoiler, there will be a new hex coming out very soon, or soon, yeah, maybe like a couple months. But there is work on a new hex ongoing, so we will probably see another hex definitely this year. That's what I do assume. The issue that we're currently having with putting chips in series is there are some unknown values, and these unknown values do certain things weird. For example, you have like 6 chips, and on the Bitaxe hex, they have been put into series of 3, if I'm not mistaken. So we have 2 voltage domains. So one thing that might happen with a hex, if you have a manufacturer who's just junking on weird chips that are not in a good quality, it might be the case that your chips are just outperforming, or not outperforming in terms of good, but outperforming in terms of bad. Like some of the chips are doing good things, some of them are doing bad things, and some have like higher error counts than others. And there's a little bit of investigation going on regardless of this fact and why this is actually happening. So yeah, it's an interesting time to be in. And I mean, we don't really have instant answers for that currently. And I do believe there are probably some easy clues to why certain things are happening. But as Clear is pointing out, the most important thing about putting things into series is like balancing them. And there could definitely be a pain in the ass. Yeah, and I do think you're right with that, but amperage in a PCB is not really viable. But it has been built and it does run. And it always depends on how much power you do zip out of these things. So it's definitely interesting. If I'm not mistaken, this amperage is not been put through a single trace, but if I'm not mistaken, the octaves does have 2 domains. So it's not put in series. It's basically all of them are on the same voltage domain of 1.2 volts. But yeah, we're probably looking at like 80, 90 amps that you're pushing out there. And the octaves that we're talking here about is a monster. I call it like that. And it does look cool. Especially, my friend, he told me he does have put in a 3D printable case that he designed for it. So let's see. I don't want to spoil it myself, so it's sitting on my desk, and I definitely want to grasp a look into that, but I want to save that for tomorrow. So yeah, it's definitely a hard thing to actually design something that does certain things correct. Let me quickly take a look in the chat here. Yeah, developer Algo is writing in the chat, anything above 12 or 16 ASICs is a little bit nuts for home mining. I kind of do agree and disagree at the same time. I mean, if you do think about it, putting a ton of ASICs into a miner and then actually making sure that you can use that at home because it's safe, etc., etc. It does take a lot of engineering. It does take a lot of knowledge about what you're doing there in order to build a system that is viable and running. And even then, if you have built it and let's say you publish that or you send that somewhere else to be manufactured, it also relies on the manufacturing process that everything is correct. You could be the greatest builder when it comes to designing PCBs, but if the manufacturer is doing certain things wrong, then you have a fire hazard at your desk. So yeah, those things are multiple components that need to tie together in order to make sure that you do have a device that is quality-wise on a standpoint where everybody does agree that this device is more or less safe to use. And with that, I think having bigger miners is definitely something that people are wanting to have, that people do want to get into. I'm just curious what's going to be the limit. I personally think that most home miners are interested in something sub 500 watts. That's my personal opinion. Even like if you have something at 480 watts as an example, I'm not sure how many people would actually get that and run this like 24/7. The Bitaxe is a no-brainer. The Bitforge Nano is a no-brainer. It's like sub 50 watts, both of these devices. Same goes for other devices. Even the NerdQX++, you can run this easily at 60, 70 watts. It's getting in a range where it's not really a no-brainer, but it's okay to run that 24/7. But if you go above, I'd say 120, 150 watts, people are looking at these devices and are wondering, does it make sense to let this run 24/7 and just zip my electricity or not? So I think the only trace that we do have is going with more efficient models and staying in a range that is appropriate to the people and to the community. Sure, we will always have people who are building weird things or monsters that are doing beyond everything that is good and bad. And that's great because it's a knowledge ground that we all can learn from. But me personally, if I do think about like designing something that people will run at their home, designing it in such a way that it is hopefully cost effective, and then manufacturers producing that and selling that, I think 500 watts, maybe even 400 watts is more or less the harder limit. Because if you go around and you have a couple of friends and you just ask them, hey, what is the maximum amperage you want to have been drawn on your circuit breaker 24/7? Like a cell phone charger, yeah, nobody cares about that. So that's a bit eggs. Like 2 cell phones, all right, nobody really cares about that. I have a girlfriend, so yeah, we do have cell phone chargers and we use that. Not 24/7, but really often. So we don't really care about these numbers when it comes to wattage. That's the equivalent of a Bitforge Nano. So yeah, I think if we go beyond that and we tell the people, hey, let your toaster run 24/7, they're gonna get curious and are like, well, does it earn me anything? Is it like, is solo mining really a good thing? Like I'm burning, I'm losing money basically until I find anything. So it's a weird position to be in, I do believe. And we'll see. We'll see. I mean, IXTags, they have also proved themselves with building the NerdQX, with building different designs, different form factors, forcing a little bit more of the advanced power users who are interested in an overclocking and making sure that their devices are running smoothly. But even that, like how many people actually want to have that? The amount of people that actually want to run a Bitcoin miner at home are already in a niche. We are already in a niche, what we are doing here. And then the niche, let's say we have 1 million people in there. How many of these people are actually going to run like a big beefy machine 24/7? That's going to be a niche in a niche, probably. So I don't know. to be honest. And as Sean is pointing out, it's going to come down to the ASIC efficiency and the supply, obviously. But with that, I want to go into a little bit of a different direction in a second and have a quick glimpse into what's coming for the next release for the Bitaxe. Because currently we're sitting at the version 2.13.1, and some of you people have updated, some of you don't. 13.1 was just a bug fix for the manufacturers for the self-test. The next release will be the version 2.14, and Mutatrum and I and a couple others, we are currently building on a couple of features that hopefully many of you will like. Let me quickly grasp into what's going on in the chat. Yeah, people are more or less agreeing on economics of power usage, rewards, and cost. Yeah, it needs to make sense in order to run these devices. But let's get back to the topic that I want to talk about here, and hopefully some of you guys do have more questions, or maybe some of you guys are clueless about certain things and want to get answers. Feel free to ask them in the chat. And everybody who's listening to this later on, check out our Discord server at discord.gg/OSMU. With the version 2.14, Mutatrum and I, we basically have more or less a vision of what we want to do in terms of how do we want to shape XOS, how do we want to shape the UI, UX that people do have, and certain things of how we do interact with that. I mean, currently, if we look into the Bitaxe, we have a ton of things in there. But I was always a little bit curious about, like, is that actually good what we're currently doing? And I think as a developer, that is a necessary step that you need to do. Like, take a look on the current state that you are in, combine all of the input that you do have from the users worldwide, because like I'm trying to skim Reddit, I'm trying to skim X and other platforms. I do leave out Facebook. I'm not really using that. I don't even have a Facebook account, so I probably can't even read these groups that are out there. But the responses that I do get from time to time, and sometimes really often on Reddit or on X, is like people are being sometimes a little bit confused about all of these options that they do have. And Mutatrum and I, and all of the other developers, obviously, that have been contributing to the XOS firmware or the ESP miner firmware, with all of the crazy features that we built into that, we obviously always thought, well, that is a needed feature. We want to make sure that people do get this part about Bitcoin mining. Like, for example, Mutatrum with his script sig, that you are going to be able to see what's going on with the block that you're actually mining. Then like information about, are you actually solo mining or not? Then you get like a banner of information. Hey, you're not solo mining, you're mining some shitcoin or something else. These are for us interesting features because we do get all of these things around. But the point that I'm trying to make here is, from time to time, I try to step back and think about what we have built. And the responses that I do see often from newbies, especially people that we're trying to attract into this, because we need people that are interested in Bitcoin mining for multiple reasons. Some of them want to just play a little bit lottery. Some of them want to run this 24/7 and gain a couple of sets daily. And some others are there to tinker. Others have different reasons. But the biggest thing that we need to achieve with the Bitaxe is we need to have a seamless onboarding process. And in that term, we need to make sure that the information are as clear as possible. We started originally with implementing all of these question marks so that people at least do understand what's going on there. We added in certain improvements. For example, if you just want to show your friend your miner, you can hide sensitive information. We added in script sig decryption so that you can see what's actually going on the block that I'm mining. So these things are really nice. And as someone who's understanding these, it does make sense to see that. The hash rate register was probably the biggest controversial topic as we released it. And it was kind of weird because we noticed immediately that people were pissed for different reasons. Some of them thought their device is broken. Others were ludicrous in going daily to their manufacturer or their reseller and are claiming their devices are now broken. And others are like, well, I'm not going to upgrade it because my hash rate is now lower. Well, we reported the actual hash rate and the mechanism that we used before was not as accurate. So what was happening with that is we implemented certain features and people didn't really understand what we did there. So with the next release, what we're trying to do is we're trying to give back to the people a little bit of a improvement for everybody who's already used to the Bitaxe or who's already a novel in this topic and does understand a ton of these features. They can always do everything with it, but there's a certain thing that is currently being worked on, which is a UI improvement in terms of making it a little bit easier for people to start into the Bitaxe if they had never had this journey before. Think about it. Your best friend never heard about Bitcoin, you just orange pilled him, and now you're trying to get him his first node, then his wallet, or probably both at the same time. And now you're trying to lure him into mining and are trying to tell him how this works. And obviously a Bitaxe or any other micro miner is a nice gimmick to get into that, to understand Bitcoin mining from hardware to software, because it's understandable in terms of you can go out there, you can learn it, you can try to read the code if you do understand that. If not, you can try to learn that and then do this. If you're an electronic engineer, or even if you're not, you can still try to learn that. You can get into these things. But the biggest issue is the experience that you get if you upload everything or if you connect to the device and you don't understand what is hitting you. And we're trying to fix that going forward with the version 2.14. One of the things that we're currently working on is how to improve the first impression for the people. Obviously, there are a lot of information, like the heat management, the fan management, the power, hash rate register, block headers, pool, etc. So with the version 2.14, a couple of these things will be invisible. And you can always re-enable them. We're currently trying to figure out what would be the best way for that. But what we're trying to do is to minimize the input that people will receive, especially for those who just set up the first miner. And then as they do expand their knowledge about what they're doing there, they understand, hey, there's a menu. I can just select that I want to see more information. And now I do get that. Also, some people maybe like it to just see certain information and they can just make other information invisible. Obviously, you could just go out there and build yourself a vibe-coded API endpoint to talk to and have a nice fancy dashboard. Sure, that's a thing. But I think it's also necessary that we do onboard people nicer into this scene, into this niche of Bitcoin. And yeah, for that, we're trying to work on improving that, especially with this making certain features visible or invisible, as well as there are other improvements coming from the back end that should hopefully improve the overall glance of what's going on with the device. I mean, if we're taking a look on the current milestone of XOS for the version 2.14, we still do have a couple of things left that we need to do. And one of the most requested features that is sitting out there probably for over 1.5 years is that you can stop and disable your ASIC and on a later date enable it again. It is a feature that has been implemented in the NerdX probably, I don't know, like 3 or 4 releases ago, or maybe it's even older. But so far it hasn't been a thing on the Bitaxe. But B. Rowan was reaching out and was taking a deeper look on what I did with the overheat mode and implemented that for stopping the ASIC as well, which is lovely to see. So we're currently reviewing that and making sure that this will come into the version 2.14 as well. It's an awesome thing, and it's somewhat needed. Especially, I'm currently playing again because summer is coming, a ton with my solar panels and everything else around. So yeah, it is a needed thing that you might wanna use if you're as crazy as I am. But again, it falls into the same category as what I was talking about earlier. You don't need this feature if you're brand new to that. So it will likely be hidden in the first place until you come to this menu and enable it. On how this will look like, we're not certainly sure about that. I do have a proposal. It's in a pull request, but Mutachim and I, we still need to discuss that a little bit about how we want to do that, because he's happy about certain features and I'm not happy about certain other features. So yeah, but it's good. It's good. It's like always having conversations about these things and making sure that we get as much input as possible. Because think about it, if just only one person would build all of these things, it would take ages and it would be tied to this person. So yeah, another cool thing that has also recently been introduced is like this showing if certain BIP signals are in your block header. So maybe you are aware about BIP's Bitcoin improvement proposals. There is, for example, the BIP 110 out there, and there's also the BIP 54 out there, which are like signaling indicators in a block header that you support this Bitcoin improvement proposal, or if you don't have this in your header, then you're not, or you're not against, you're not for it, you're just neutral. But these things are currently thriving. They are a certain source of interest, and Mutatron did a really great job with implementing, showing the BIP 110, and he also did this now for the BIP 54. So with the next release, you will be able to see if the block headers that you are mining are actually approving that, which might be useful for certain people. In the end of the day, it's kind of a wild situation that not even a handful of miners and mining software out there is supporting this, is even showing you these kind of information. Like if you use Brains, LuxOS, or whatever, they don't really show you that. I'm sorry. So given the fact that these are thriving informations that are going around there and people want to know about this, it's kind of interesting to show that to the people that they are either supporting that, or if they don't see this kind of information, they don't see this in their dashboard. But showing that to the people just gives back a little bit to the term of you make mining again a little bit more grasping. You can actually grasp what you're doing. Like you set up your node to be specifically supporting a certain BIP. Now you can see that in your miner and you know, hey, I did everything correct and I'm supporting this BIP, which is a great thing. It doesn't mean you do support it or not. So it just gives you the option to see these signals in block headers, which is awesome. And I really thank Mutatron for doing the work on that. Another thing that was maybe on the minor list of changes that are coming to the next release is Wi-Fi roaming. If you, well, we'll give it a second. Let me quickly read what Mutatron wrote in the chat. He wrote, the addition of BIP labels is not an endorsement in itself. The only variable here is that there has been a block mined on mainnet that signaled these BIPs. Yeah, that's correct. So as he wrote, and as I said previously, there's no endorsement, there's no enforcement of like, you see these labels in your block header. Or it doesn't actually tell anybody, now we are supporting this or we're not supporting this. It just shows you if this is in the block header or not. And certain pools do have these signals in their block headers, some don't. So you just have the option to actually see more information about what's going on. So now moving forward to the next topic, it was probably a minor issue, but I kind of made it to a bigger issue. I do have a home with a couple of rooms, and usually your Bitaxe is plugged into an outlet and you don't really move around with it, usually. But I have a power bank. I have USB cables modified so that I can run my Bitaxe off my power bank. And sometimes I'm running around with my Bitaxe attached to this power bank for stupid reasons. But a thing that I noticed, and that a couple of other people also noticed, is if you move around with your Bitaxe and you have multiple access points, they are all signaling and sending out the same network address and network name. Let's call it network 123, whatever. And you move around from upstairs to downstairs, or even in your basement, and you would assume it would connect to the next best AP. Well, the current reality is it doesn't. I was doing a test yesterday. It was not really working. Then I did a couple of changes, and it kind of seems to work now. I still need to do more testing, and I need to find a couple of people who do have house or multiple access points that they can walk around with the Bitaxe and test this. So maybe some of you guys are as stupid as I am and can test this for me. That would be really appreciated. But the reason being why this is a nice thing is you have the ability to be now a little bit more mobile with your device. And there is this wall eggs thingy, this add-on for your Bitaxe that you can just plug it directly into an outlet. And I think if we also do have a couple of additions that you can just run around with a small battery pack or something like that, that's not too heavy, hopefully, to run your miner, I don't know, for a couple of hours or so, then people are probably will request this feature a little bit more often. So it's a precaution that I'm taking here to try to implement this. Yeah. Let's see. What else should I be talking about? Mutatrim, are you thinking about anything that we could talk about that's been coming? I mean, we have done so many things lately. I'm kind of losing track about what's also important. I mean, we do have a bigger amount of pull requests and a bigger amount of issues lately. Oh yeah, yes, that's a really good point. So for everybody who's not aware, Mutatrim released the early access version for certain things, especially for testing. There are sometimes pull requests of things that we are not implementing in the next big release because we do think it takes a little bit more time to cook, or it takes just a little bit more review in terms of, does it actually make sense? Do we want to have this piece of code in our code base and have this shipped out to hundreds of thousands of people or devices? I don't know how many people out there running a Bitaxe, but one thing is that there are more than 100,000 Bitaxes out there, definitely. So he released the early access version 2026-03 with a couple of things in there, like it will show you your solo chances for like how likely is it to find the block with your device, as well as a high score list in terms of your hashes that you did with your devices, which is kind of neat. And there are also a couple of other things on there. I mean, it's not only that, it's certain other improvements. It's like a quick link for more pools, some other support, such as Stratum v2. There is some interesting things going on there. Like these early access versions are like the advanced betas. Like we do have the beta versions, but beta versions are versions that will definitely go into the mainline code. With the early access version, it is something in between. It could go into the main source code, but it might not. But it's something that we do like and that we do want to show. So he created the early access version, and with that we can test certain features. and implement them. I mean, one of the biggest things here that I'm taking a look right now is like an Easter egg from MRV 777 back in the days. Like, when was that? 2 years ago? Let me take a look. That was 2024, in November 2024. We never put that into the mainline code. Reason being is, yeah, I mean, back in the days, it just didn't click with me. I was like, yeah, okay, why? But sure, it's a nice Easter egg. He did that, and now it's in the early access version, and we might actually bring this into the mainline code because it's fun. And in the end of the day, these devices should be fun for you to use and for us to develop on. So, yeah, there are definitely a ton of things in there that are hopefully being improving. And the reason why he created this version is not only for him to test all of these features, but there's also the hope that we do receive a little bit more response from people. Like seeing that, testing this out, and just giving a little bit of feedback. I mean, there are certain add-ons out there and certain things that you can do with your Bitaxe and your Nodix devices. One of the current things that is somehow hyping are Ethernet thingies. There's an attachment for the Bitaxe, for example, which does hijack the BIP for that in a way that is kind of wild and is missing a certain couple of things. So what has happened is that the early access version does have USB over Ethernet. So you could, if you know how to configure your PC, you could give your Bitaxe Ethernet over USB instead of having some janky other thing. You just need to configure your PC to be able to send over Ethernet over the USB cable to the Bitaxe. So your PC needs to act as a gateway, and you need to choose things there. Apparently on Windows, this appears to be a little bit simpler. I did it on Linux as well, on Arch Linux. I use Arch, by the way, to get this working. It's a nice and handy thing. It was fun to try this out. And it will probably come into the it will definitely come into mainline. There was just not really a use for it yet. But I do think we will put it out there. And I need to do a dedicated video on how to set this up. So probably I need to get myself a new Windows PC to test it out. But yeah, there are a ton of things that we're trying to do there. Stratton V2, for example, is something that has been proposed. The question about this is a little bit more technical, whether we want to do actually implement Stratton V2 in the way it has been implemented there or not, but that's a different topic. Before I do forget that, let me quickly drop this to you in the audience. I mean, most of the people that I do see in here are usually here, and it's lovely to have you and listen here to my lovely voice. But for all of those that I don't see there directly in here, if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them. And I do see Hex was asking the Bitaxe Hex Gamma coming soon, TM, or soon. Yeah, well, I kind of tried to spoil that a little bit, that there's been work going on for the Bitaxe Hex Gamma. But how soon? Well, I wouldn't say in the next couple of months. I'd say somewhere middle later this year, probably, from my understanding of how quick we can work on certain projects. Because like even myself, the past 4 weeks were a nightmare. Like Mutatron was nagging me, was trying to get a couple of things merged. I couldn't. I was sick and bad. Other things were going on. Yeah, then I was distracted with a different project. I was doing other things. Then I came back, did a couple of things, moved on to another project. So things take time, especially development of like new designs. If you just do them as you please, will take time. Obviously, if we would be a company, that would be a little bit easier, because then we can just say, hey, that's your task, do that. And Yeah, apparently we're not. We are some idiots in the internet, and I love it. So, uh, yeah, yeah. I don't really know anything else that I should talking here about today. So let's see if you do have a little bit of input in the chat here. And Mutatron was posting also in the chat a quick explanation on how to get the Ethernet over USB running. It is definitely a neat guide from the Raspberry Pi newsletter there. Sean is asking, are all the projects that are in the work, like the Gamma Hex or Bitaxe Mini, listed in the wiki? So there was a little bit of drama going on. Some dickhead was weird things posting on the glorious internet about the Mini. So I and a friend of mine, we're working on the Bitaxe Mini, which is a 4-chip design. And I was posting a quick drawing of it in the wiki. I removed it currently. Reason being is that it's not yet done. It's not yet finalized. The prototypes are on its way. I just ordered them 2 days ago. So let's see how long it will take for development, for processing that and sending them over to me. But I do assume that I will have these prototypes with me in probably like 2 weeks or so that I can test the initial things. And there's a difference between certain developers. Like Scott, for example, if he is working on a new revision, he is from the earliest working version on doing it publicly, while I'm trying to do it in a different fashion, a little bit, not too much different than that. I'm trying to get a working unit that is like basically ready to be produced, and then I do publish it. That's the way how I did it with the Bitforge Nano. Like we were developing on that, and I was only releasing it as soon as I was able to make sure that it has been manufacturable and mass producible, basically, and not having like these development units with the X and the XX and so on. So the Gamma Hex is not in the wiki, and the Mini listing in the wiki has been removed. It will be coming back. I just need to, as I said, I just need to check out the boards when they do arrive, do all of the testing. Then I need to manually solder the ASICs. That's going to be really fun, because for the Mini, I was going for serious. It's not gonna be a NerdQX++. Definitely not. It's gonna be 4 voltage domains. So it's gonna be different. It's the design of how we do work there is gonna be different. The amperage is in that terms way lower, so it's way safer to use. It will, with this requirement or this precaution, very likely pass all of the certifications that you do need to sell these products in Europe, etc. pp. I mean, certain things are different between continents. Like certain regulations apply to the US, certain to the EU, and certain others to other countries. I'm based in the EU, so I try to build these things as compliant as possible to the standards that we do have here. And apparently, if you pass these standards, then it's more or less safely to sell them worldwide without being sued by the government or idiots or whatever. So yeah, for the process of the Mini, I will not publish it until I do have a working unit that I do know can be mass produced. So because I don't personally want to see a GT shit show going on again. Like that was hilarious and stupid at the same time. So I decided that my route of doing that is a little bit different. But everybody does its own, and things are different for other things. Like the Bonanza design, if I'm not mistaken, should be published, if I'm not mistaken about that, the Intel chips. And the next Bitaxe will obviously, if the S23 comes out, and we do have the first working unit, like it doesn't mean it's going to be mass producible. It's just like, hey, it somehow works. We just still need to figure out certain things that will be published from the get-go. until we have the final version. So yeah, some boards are developed by different people, so it's hard to keep up with that, especially as we try to have this umbrella of OSMU attached to everything. But I do hope with all of these explanations that I try to do and give and talk that much about these things, that people do understand that. Well, I was seeing that Sean was writing the chat. I don't know if she does have a question, but if not, I was talking about like 47 minutes constantly. I definitely need something to drink. I don't know. Like, guys, if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them right now. Otherwise, I think this is going to be a short town hall. I'm still in personal recovery phase. Like, past 3 weeks were hilarious and frustrating. I was basically sitting in my bed all day long. The last town hall didn't even happen because I was not able to speak. But I'm getting back, so you'll probably not lose me anytime soon. That's kind of human touch, thank you. Let me see. Are there any things, any future lookouts? You know what? Instead of me making some clues, what about you guys? Tell me what you think needs to come next. Just some best words. That's something I'm interested in. Like, what do you think needs to be the next big thing that's gonna change? I don't know. Not probably disrupt the market as the Bitaxe is currently doing, but definitely disrupt a ton of things. Like, sure, all of us are usually thinking about more hashes, more hashes, more hashes. Yeah, I do get you, people. And there is something I'm building with the next Bitforge as well, primarily for that particular reason. But I don't know, is more hash actually killing it? Or are like use cases killing it? Dry your laundry, have warm water to shower. I don't know. It's kind of wild thing to think about, because the only real use case you can add to these things is basically make use of the wasted heat. Sean is writing in the chat, better alternatives to Bitmain chips in terms of comparable performance, but better availability and company willing to serve the small home miner community. Yeah, that's such a frustrating thing. The biggest issue right here is, even though some companies like BitDeer is going out there and having the wildest claims ever to their venture capitalists for their future outlooks, like they promised a ton of stupid things, like stupid efficiency that they were definitely not capable of reaching, like stupid hash rate amounts for their new devices. The point that I'm trying to make here is, I don't see any other company that close to Bitmain. Maybe WhatsMiner, but even WhatsMiner, like MicroBT, they are so far behind when it comes to efficiency and what is actually reachable. Sure, we can always downclock these devices and reach a certain level. But if you're talking about like joules per terahash at the best peak performance, there's nothing that beats Bitmain currently. Sadly, nothing that comes close. And the saddest part about all of these things is there's not a single company out there that is actually willing to work with home miners, as we're trying to speak about ourselves here. Like, not a single one. Sure, Scott had a couple of discussions with some companies. I had a couple of discussions with a couple other companies and other people as well. But the end of the day is, yeah, you maybe sign an NDA, maybe you do get a nice chat, but then there's that silence. Like, the biggest issue these companies do have is some of them definitely want to support what we're building here in terms of making sure that we have chip availability, etc. But in the end of the day, most of these companies are venture capital finance. So what is their problem? Their problem is, hey, VC or board team members, we do have a potential new market we want to reach. It's small mining machines. And they come back with the basic question, yeah, that's cool. How many chips are we going to sell through that? Yeah, they're estimating probably 100,000 to like 300,000 chips a year. The board will instantly say no. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? We're not even wasting our time thinking about that because it's way too little chips. So my belief, my future lookout for that particular topic is, I believe we will get there. I believe we will have, hopefully in the future, a sustainable availability of certain chips from certain manufacturers. But we need to be a little bit more disruptive before this actually happens. Cypher Cosmos writing, would be cool to see upgradable hardware like Framework and Proto. So, there are some issues to that. The basic issue that you will see is if you go over to osmu.wiki and you browse the wiki and you take a look into the OSMU lab, just take a look on the BM1366. There's also a schematic and a pinout. And then take a look on the BM1368 or BM1370. The thing that you will instantly notice is they are pin incompatible. You cannot upgrade that. It's not possible, which is a bummer. Maybe you could do a couple of tricks to still have them do that. One approach that we had was the Flex Eggs from PMax. Like I had a chat with him probably 1.5, 2 years ago, where we were both shit talking a little bit about how cool it would be to have like NVMe style cards that you just plug into a motherboard basically, and then you need some sort of a cooler and you cool that, and you as a customer or user can select of how many ASICs you want to run. Yeah, it kind of worked, but it was so shit that we abandoned this project, or basically he abandoned it because he built it. Yeah, that was sadly not really feasible. BSS is asking why about efficiency improvement instead of chasing hash rate. Well, I think the most important thing is how much hash rate can you get out of a single watt of usage, like watt hour of usage, or even kilowatt hours of usage. Because, yeah, you could argue a Bitaxe doesn't make sense because it's only 1 terahash. I just run an S9 because it's 14 terahash. And then I tell you, well, you dumb fuck, you are wasting close to 1,200 watts and I'm wasting 20 watts. And you're just getting 14 times more the hash rate, but I'm X times more efficient. That probably answers the question. Yeah, Mutatrum is also pointing out to that. Better efficiency for actual heat use case, considering energy prices are not going down anytime soon. Yeah, probably that's going to be an interesting thing. I mean, I was taking a look at this heating device for your shower, your warm water, that has been introduced on the MWC, if I'm not mistaken. On some conference over in the US, it has been introduced there. Like a brand new company out of nowhere, and they just showed a device that you can use to heat your shower. Kind of cool, obviously. Remote access via Tor. Never really thought about that, to be honest. Not really sure how useful that might be. Hmm. Yeah. Interesting. Maybe a profile feature for people trying to max out versus others seeking silence, low energy consumption. Well, for the Bitforge Nano and the Bitforge OS firmware, I was trying to aim into that because in that version you only have the ability to select like 3 different modes: eco, medium, power. You could still overclock your devices, but a profile, that's an interesting one. Need to think about that. Those are some really good thoughts from you guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for doing that. Yeah, I think with that we can sum up this session today. It was nice talking about upcoming things and just sharing my personal opinion and my personal insight into what we're currently working on and why we're working on it. Just to give you a little bit of an update to what's going on behind the scenes while we are silent. So I do hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully, it was not too boring. Definitely wasn't. And I do hope to see you again in 2 weeks for the next town hall. Till then, I clap everybody of you for being here and anticipating into that. Thank you for doing that and sharing your thoughts of what you want to see or might think might be cool considering future releases. And I thank everybody of you for listening to that. For everybody else who has been listening to that later on, thank you for listening to that. And if you want to check out OSMU, do that at discord.gg/OSMU. Our wiki page is also awesome and it receives from time to time a little bit of love. You can find that at osmu.wiki. And our general page is at osmu.xyz. So now I probably have mentioned everything. I see Duncan is coming in here. I thank everybody for coming here today. See you again in 2 weeks. Bye bye.